Welcome everyone to this learning webinar about the topic of soft skills. Soft skills is a term you don't hear too often, and it's also a term that confuses some folks. And what soft skills means in the mechanical trades are skills such as a person's attitude, a person's communication style, a person's vernacular, meaning the words that they use, the person's dress, attire. It includes all of those skills that enable someone to convey a positive image of themselves in person, especially when they're representing the company for whom they work. So in this learning webinar, I'm going to talk about soft skills from lots of different perspectives, and it'll help any young person who seeks a career in the mechanical trades to leverage those behaviors to make them more successful in the work that they do. So for young people, I'm going to sound like I'm your dad, and that's okay. I've got a son who's in his 20s, and I spend some of my time doing that. And what I've told my son, and I'm going to tell you right now, is that there are two career advancement and soft skill factors that will have the largest impact on your career. And the first of those two career advancement factors are the books you read. And I know that you can learn lots on YouTube, you can learn lots on television and on the internet. However, there is no substitute for reading the right books. What I've learned through my career is that when you read the right books and you apply what you have read, you are internalizing new information and then manifesting it towards the work that you do as a professional. So I've got some examples of the right books that people ought to be reading. And the first one is a book called the 100 Words Every High School Graduate Should Know. So this is an interesting little book. And when I first got it, me as a person with a moderate vocabulary, I thought I was going to know all 100 words. Well, I was sadly disappointed to learn I didn't know many of them. And this is a good little handy book to have. And here's why. Is that in your career, when you improve your vocabulary and your ability to speak well, you attract a better class of friends and a better class of business relationships. And I remember when I was in my teens and my father sent me for a job interview with a construction company, and I did not get the job interview. And that's because the person who was interviewing me asked me a very simple question. And the question was, what makes you think you're so gregarious? And I didn't know what the word gregarious meant. And therefore, he had a rather sour impression of me, and I didn't get the job. But as a teenager, I learned I had a pretty lousy vocabulary, and I needed to do something about it. And I started to memorize words in the dictionary, maybe 1 or 2 words a week. And that's how I started to develop my own vocabulary. So the words that you use are going to make a difference in terms of career advancement. Another factor that will impact people's careers relevant to books is understanding history. And one of the best history books I've read in the last few years is Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. And it may sound boring to you, but I assure you history is exciting. And those people who understand history are those people who can engage into a better conversation with other people. The more you know, again, it attracts a different type of people. So understanding history can be inspiring. Reading about great leaders and great civilizations can have a real impact on a person's professionalism. And then lastly, this book here is entitled Travels with Charlie. It's by John Steinbeck, the great American author. And it's a book that I read just a year ago. And he wrote this book when he was 58 years old, a few years younger than the age I am now. And what I learned from this book is traveling around the country in a pickup truck can be a lot of fun. And reading the book inspired me to do that this year. And when you can meet people up close and personal and drive to clients' places in a pickup, you get to convey a different side of yourself. And it was also very informative about learning about the country as it was then, when John Steinbeck wrote the book as opposed to as it is now. So those are just 3 examples of books people ought to be reading. And the other factor about career advancement is the people with whom you hang out make a difference. Choose your friends carefully. And one of the nice things I get to do as an educational professional is I get to speak at lots of colleges. I get to see lots of people. I get to meet students, and I get to watch them interact with each other. And some of the things I've learned, and here's me with some students at the Fort Myers Technical Institute, and I've learned that people interact differently depending on age and background and lots of other factors. And when people choose their friends more carefully and they hang out with positive people who have similar goals, similar aspirations, boy, you get a better momentum in your life. You get more synergy, and things tend to work out well. And here's a situation where I'm working with some mechanical workers and some apprentices in a company that really makes a powerful difference in the mechanical trades. And here's some other people, lots of friends in a classroom in Oakland, California. And you can see some people are young, some people are not so young, but they all have an opportunity to pick the right friends. And when you pick the people who ought to make a positive difference, it makes a difference. For young people today, I would suggest picking a mentor that can enable you to avert some of the mistakes that the mentor might have made and repeat some of the successes that the mentor might have made. So here's a mentor of mine. This is Aaron York from Indianapolis, Indiana. Aaron is now mostly retired, and he owned and managed one of the most profitable plumbing and heating companies in the Midwest. And he did it from a lesson he learned when he was only about 21 years old. And the way Aaron tells me the story is that he went on a service call to do maintenance on an oil furnace. He was in a customer's basement, and when he opened up the oil filter canister, oil leaked out of the canister onto the customer's concrete floor. So, you know, being a young man who wanted to not leave a mess, he got a rag and he wiped up the oil spill, but not to his satisfaction. So he went to the truck, he got some degreaser and a wire brush, and he scraped the concrete floor, cleaned up all the oil, he finished the maintenance, and he went back to the shop. And when he went back to the shop, his boss said that the customer had just called. And Aaron thought that he was in trouble. But what he learned to his delight was that the customer called to say thank you. Because the customer said that whenever that company had done service on the oil furnace, the customer always had to endure this odor of oil in the house that would last for days. But the customer said today there was no oil odor. And Aaron, as a 21-year-old, thought to himself and said, you know, I spent all this time learning how to be technical, learning about the mechanical trades, yet what the customer appreciated was the fact that I cleaned up afterwards. That is a soft skill. And Aaron learned that lesson early on in his career, and it served him well. And what Aaron told me as a mentor was when he started his own company, he made sure that the customers saw that he was carrying a vacuum cleaner into their house along with the tools, because he wanted customers to know he was going to clean up afterwards. Those are the types of things customers appreciate in terms of behaviors, and they're all soft skills. So digging into what customers really appreciate, a study written recently, it's called Aggravating Circumstances, a study on rudeness in America, indicates some interesting metrics about customer preferences. And what Americans are saying is that 80% of them say lack of courtesy is a problem today. Now, when you think about soft skills and being courteous and being polite, this is what customers really appreciate, but they're saying they're not getting enough of it. Therefore, as an apprentice or as a student, when you get to focus on the courtesy skills, you're giving the customers what they claim they're not getting enough of. And that helps you to stand out and be perceived as a more professional mechanical worker. 73% of Americans say we used to be more courteous in the past. indicating that there's a trend that things might be getting worse, relevant to courtesy and how customers perceive it. So if the trend is indicating that that things are getting worse, we want to go against that trend. We want to be the mechanical worker that aligns with the customer's expectation, that exceeds their expectations, and make sure that we convey something more professional. And then 77% of those Americans in the survey said sometimes salespeople act like the customer is not there. And this was mostly relevant to retail situations, but you've all had that encounter where you may be shopping at retail and maybe the checkout clerk is ringing up your items, but they're also looking at their smartphone or texting, and they're not paying 100% of their attention to you. And what customers want more than anything else is to be heard. They want to know that someone's listening and that someone cares. And those are the things that make a difference relevant to soft skills. So in any mechanical industry, there may be lots of competition. And the idea that I try to get across to those people who I serve is to stand out. Don't be like everyone else. And this comes back to the books you read and the people with whom you hang out again. You want to choose your friends carefully. You want to stand out. You want to be perceived as the smarter person with a better vocabulary, a person who knows how to make the right choices. And the whole thing about career advancement and soft skills is don't blend in. Don't be like everyone else. Mechanical companies that learn to differentiate themselves in their marketplace are those companies who stand out. Those are the companies who tend to be more profitable. They exceed customers' expectations, and they provide more long-term employment opportunities for the plumbers and the technicians who they may hire. So this is the key thing to pay attention to. Don't just blend in. Stand out in almost everything you can do as a career professional. So one of the words I'd like to introduce into our vocabulary today is the word congruency. So it's not a word you hear too often, but it has a lot of application in terms of customer service and soft skills and what customers expect. So as a noun, congruency means when things are in agreement or in harmony. As an adjective, it means when things correspond in character or in kind. So perhaps you remember the word congruent or congruency from mathematics class when the teacher was speaking about congruent shapes or congruent lines. There were lines that matched. And congruency is a very powerful force in business. And here's how. When you work for one of the mechanical companies in town that does not blend in, they're a differentiated company. They're the best. Well, those are the companies that have high expectations of their employees. And those employees represent a brand. And the brand that they represent matters. The brand is going to be on the side of their van or their truck. The brand is also going to be on their clothing or on their hat. And employees that represent the brand, they may not be the cheapest company in town. But if they're not going to be the cheapest, then they have to demonstrate behavior that is congruent to that higher price. And this is what separates the amateurs from the professionals, is the professionals exceed expectations. They are congruent to a brand that matters in many of the neighborhoods and communities where they serve customers. So I've got a brand of a client that I served recently. It's a Trademasters in Lorton, Virginia. And they've got a brand, and this brand, it's loud and proud. It's on the side of the trucks, it's on the website, it's on the clothing. And regardless of what brand you might be wearing when you are employed, you want to represent that brand like an ambassador. Be congruent to everything that brand stands for. And those are the key things. So in customer service and soft skills, there are some key performance indicators that make a difference in terms of behaviors that employees may demonstrate. So I'm going to do a quick illustration here using a pyramid. So some of the key performance indicators, or KPIs, as an acronym, go like this. When it comes to behavior, Soft skills requires that a mechanical professional be prepared. This means when you pull up to a property, you don't just get out of the truck looking haphazard. When you leave the truck, you've got to be smiling. You've got to look like you love your job. You've got to have your business card or your tools or something in your hand that says, I'm ready to get something done and to solve a problem or satisfy a customer. Preparation matters. Anyone can just pull up to a property and walk out of the truck. A professional invests just a few seconds sitting in the truck looking at the work order, whether it's on your tablet or whether it's on a pad, making sure you understand what you're there to do, and just double check a few key facts. Preparation always matters. Another thing that's an indicator is your ability to listen. So let's say you might pull up to a property, whether it's a residential or a commercial property. You greet something with you greet a customer with a positive and a courteous greeting, and then you put yourself into listening mode. You want to pay attention to what the customer might be saying about the reason for the service call. Listening means you're exercising lots of energy, and it's mental energy. It's the type of energy that is required to make sure that you're getting all the key points a customer might be conveying to you. And then listening is followed by empathy, which means showing that you care and that you're concerned about making sure the issues that the customer called about get handled. And then you also want to put yourself in a position to ask questions. And this puts you back into the listening mode again. Asking questions demonstrates to another person that you care enough to make sure you get all of the information. So this pyramid here, it's rather basic, but here's what I've learned about soft skills and service. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be this simple. I've learned that when you pay attention to a few of the key important behaviors, everything else tends to fall into place. So seeing this as the key performance indicators makes a positive difference for mechanical workers. Now the other part of this is when we are working with our customers, whether they're a property manager or a maintenance engineer on a commercial site or a homeowner in a residential property, we want to shift the mindset from transactional to relational, which means we want to be more than just a transaction for that customer. We want to forge a relationship. And being more relational is all about the soft skills. And it comes back to what you're saying. And communication is not always what you're saying. It's what the customer is hearing. And this is where your vocabulary, your word usage, your communication style, all of that comes into play in what our customer is hearing about you. And then, customer, if they hear something positive, senses the congruency between the brand you represent and your behavior. And that's how mechanical workers get to establish the most positive relationship with the customers that they serve. So if we were to break out some of these key performance indicators, they might look something like this, where the preparation is about the greeting. It's about common courtesy. It's about smiling, looking like you really enjoy the work that you do. It's about saying may I and please and thank you, all of those kind words that your mother taught you to say. And one of the interesting factors I've learned in speaking at lots of colleges is that among young people today, I have found that if they weren't taught to say may I, please, and thank you by their parents, then they were going to have to be taught on the job. And many of the success skills that enable someone to advance their career are those skills that should have been taught at home. And if it hasn't happened, then we need to teach them in the classroom or on the job. But these are the skills that enable someone to be more successful. So preparation, as we learned in the pyramid, is followed by listening, which means paying attention to details, qualifying and understanding the customer's situation, and capturing any details, writing down key points. Customers like it when you care enough to write things down, because it says to a customer that you want to make sure you get all of the information. Then listening is followed by empathy, and the empathy is how you show concern. It's how you reassure a customer by delivering peace of mind, and you explain some of your company's options about how you might be able to resolve the situation that you're there to fix. And then asking. Just make sure the customer understands. Ask them if they have any questions. Ask questions if you need clarification on anything. Again, this puts you back into the seat as being the listener, which is a good place to be. So among all of the relationships that we may have with the customers who are external to the company and the internal customers who might be on the inside, the key relationship reality is questions are more powerful than statements. Asking questions enables us to engage our listening skills. And this is where you want to be. Because I have found that statements get people into trouble, especially statements where you don't have all of your facts and you might be making a few assumptions. So those are the things that can really hurt a business relationship. And whenever you're not sure about something, ask a question. You're always safer asking a question than making a statement when you don't have all of your details in place. So those are the key things to pay attention to. So when you think about what we've covered so far, and you might ask yourself, what do some of these best practices cost? Well, what does it cost to get prepared? If you have to sit in your truck an extra few seconds to look over a work order, what does it cost to get prepared? Ask yourself. Well, what does it cost to be courteous? Or what does it cost to follow up? Or what does it cost to have a positive attitude? And the real answer is that these behaviors are free. And you see the word free come up on the screen there as an acrostic. The employees who do the best are those employees who understand that it doesn't have to cost a lot of time, energy, or resources to be a world-class worker. It can be free. And engaging in this comes down to a choice. It's a choice you want to make about how far you want your career to go. When you make the right choices about the books you read, the people with whom you hang out, how you communicate, how you want to represent the best brand, how you want to be courteous to your customers, all of these things, they start to factor up into the positive choices you can make to be the best worker you can be. So let's do an actual case study about a real situation that I learned about when I was in Northern California a couple of years ago. A plumber told me about a faucet that he was installing for a residential customer. And the faucet installation was going just fine until he said, well, whatever he said must have been a problem. And then the customer, when she heard what he said, she grabbed the phone, she called his boss, and she said, so now you're looking at the screen, and I bet you're asking yourself, what did he say? What did he say to cause the customer to pick up the phone, call his boss, and boy, she doesn't look happy. So you can probably think of lots of different things he might have said to make the customer pick up the phone. But what actually happened was he said, this new faucet is much better than that piece of junk that I'm replacing. Now, he meant well. He was trying to compliment the customer on making a good choice on the new faucet that he was installing. Now, he was a new employee with this company, and what he didn't know was that that old piece of junk he was referring to was just installed about a year ago. The customer picked up the phone, called his boss, and she said, your plumber just told me that the faucet you sold me last year is a piece of junk. And now she wanted some accommodation. She wanted money back, and she was not happy. Now, here is a real case study where we're making a statement that is meant to be benign or neutral gets people into trouble. And whenever we have something we think we want to say, and when you get that little voice on your shoulder that's saying, don't say it, listen to that little voice. Just don't say it. If you're not sure about something, ask a question. Better off asking questions than making statements. It's the most powerful thing you can do to convey a more positive image about yourself. Okay, I just want to shift gears a little bit and get into some behaviors and demonstrate them as an actual process. And to do this, I just want to do a quick tutorial about flowcharting. So flowcharts have lots of different shapes. I'm going to use 3 shapes in the flowchart that I'm going to demonstrate: a terminator, a process shape, and then a decision shape. So a terminator is something you do at the beginning or the end of a process. It's maybe the incoming call, all done, and you're all finished. Process is what you do when you greet a customer, or it's something you do when you listen and you convey empathy. A decision shape is used when you ask yourself a question. Is this situation stable? Or am I going to transfer this to someone else? And out of the decision shape are usually arrows, where you answer the question yes or no, and they go in different directions. So here on the flowchart, you see this bigger flowchart, and you see those 3 shapes being integrated into this flowchart, where a customer's got a problem, and then you have a situation where is the customer behaving nicely, and if they're not, if the answer is no, then this reverts to a split-second response. Whenever you encounter a customer who may not be behaving well, the key soft skill is to pause, take a slow deep breath, and then think rationally, followed by listening attentively, and then after you've listened, prepare to say what you can do. Now that split-second response requires self-control, and it requires preparation, as we learned previously. So these are the behaviors that we get to integrate into the work we do, and we can see how all of these behaviors start to fit together into this flow charting process. So as you go down the process, if the problem is not containable, you would go and you would seek supervision. If it is containable, you would convey the empathy, you would take notes, as we discussed earlier, and get the best information. Another thing to learn about this process is that venting is therapeutic. Sometimes customers need time to talk. So giving a customer time to talk enables you time to listen. Again, you want to be the best listener you can be, because listening puts you in a powerful place towards establishing a better relationship with a customer. And then after you listen and you've captured some of the details, when you ask questions, use the words "help me" as a prefix to the question. So here's how it might sound. It may sound something like, help me understand when that happened, or help me understand when the unit was installed. When you start a question sentence with the words "help me," you are enabling the customer to help you. You're enabling the customer into a more constructive interaction by which you and the customer can get into a constructive dialogue about the information that is required to get things done. So this whole process, you see it as a formula that from start to end, it enables any professional who wants to maximize their soft skills behaviors to be the best that they can be when they're serving someone else. So if we wanted to drill into one part of this flow chart here, I would say it would be this part here, that split-second response. So you see the customer on the phone there, and while we would love to serve 100% of customers who are going to be nice, every now and then you're going to encounter someone who might be a little challenging. And this is where the split-second response has to be followed. And the split-second response is all about a response instead of a reaction. When we respond, we are putting ourselves into a more powerful position to let the customer vent. Again, venting is therapeutic for the customer. Puts us in the listening seat. It puts us in a position to convey more empathy when we're serving customers. So this is one of the key things to do, and it also helps to minimize some of the stress that we might experience when we are serving others. So those are key things to pay attention to when you think about customers and when you think about how to serve them best when it comes to soft skills and getting things done in serving anyone. So listening is one of those skills we can pay lots of attention to. And I want to thank you very much for participating in this educational webinar. I would urge you to review this webinar if you have the opportunity to. And it's not exhaustive, but it pays attention to the key behaviors that enable someone to maximize their soft skill professionalism. So this is phase 1 of a soft skills webinar. There will be a phase 2, and phase 2 will drill into other behaviors that will enable any mechanical worker to be the best they can be when they serve others. So I thank you for being part of this educational webinar, and being with you here today has been special for me. I wish you lots of future success. Thank you.